Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon or morning, depending on where you're at. We'll give this a few minutes to let everybody join. My name is Michelle, for those of you who I don't know, part of the TribalHub team. Thank you for being here today. We have a good webinar scheduled and ready to go, so we'll give it a few minutes for everybody to join in. If you're just joining us, if you wouldn't mind sharing in the chat where you're dialing in from. I always like to see where people are calling from. Today I'm in our TribalHub Gaylord office in Northern Michigan. Still holding on to summer for as long as we can up here. Manistee, all right, Northern New Mexico. Nice. Very cool. Some from the north and some from the south. Wayland, okay, a lot of Michigan representative here. Oh, Matt, you're in Alaska right now.
Yep, up here for meetings with our as part of our Alaska Native Corporation.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Syracuse, New York. Excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Again, everybody, hello and welcome to our webinar today, Unifying Finance, Inventory, and Point of Sale for Casino and Hospitality. We're partnering today with Arctic IT, great partners of ours. It's going to be a great webinar. Arctic does so much within the tribal space, so I'm really glad to have this conversation with you guys and so we can share some information on what they have cooking up here for point of sale. A couple of learning objectives to keep in mind when you're listening to this webinar. One, you're going to be discovering benefits of connecting that finance, inventory, retail, and food and beverage operations. And you'll also be getting a look at Dynamics 365 in action. So good stuff there. During the session, if you have questions, make sure to put it in the chat, or you can also use that Q&A. If you go under the More button, those three dots, just click that and there's a Q&A that pops up. So you can leave those there for us and we'll make sure to get those answered at the end of the presentation. Um, what else? Oh, everybody will be getting a copy of this recording tomorrow. So make sure you're on the lookout for that and be sure to share it with anybody else on your team who maybe couldn't make it today but might benefit from the information. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Matt and Tom to kick things off.
All right. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We have always appreciated our partnership with Tribal Hub and the many number of wonderful people we've worked alongside through the process. And as Michelle said, today we are diving into what is oftentimes a mostly disconnected world of bringing finance, inventory, point of sale, restaurant, all those things together in a unified platform. The benefits of that, what that can really look like, and really start shaping what the future could really mean for your properties. Yeah, I am Matt Brakowski, the Director of Business Application Sales here at Arctic IT. We're an Alaska Native corporation and you have been working in this space for over 20 years, spending most of that time helping lead and implement your financial solutions for tribal governments and tribal casinos. And joining me is Tom.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks everybody. I am Tom Lansing. I'm the Director of Business Development for Amicis. We partner with Arctic IT to deliver specialized retail food and beverage and convenience solutions on Dynamics, and we're based in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm calling in from Syracuse, New York. I have been involved in working with retailers across those verticals for the better part of 30 plus years. So really excited to be talking with everybody and sharing the content. Thanks again.
All right, thank you, Tom. Today, we're going to take a look at the reality of how these solutions are typically rolled out today, and then discuss the alternative of looking at one platform or one data model and the benefits thereof. Why why that can help bring some very positive change for your organizations. Then really look at the current customer journey, what those guests experience and what our staff and operators really experience working throughout the various aspects within our properties, but then get a peek at what some of the benefits of the unified solution could look like. Give you a little more information about the partnership across these three organizations of Microsoft, Arctic IT, and Amicis, and then make sure we leave time for a Q&A at the end. So with that, we'll dive into the modern reality. And truly, what makes the gaming and hospitality world so unique is that within one property, you are so often really dealing with at least five different businesses, right? You've got your gaming floor, your hotel, food and beverage, retail, events, and entertainment, and all those things that are complementary to one another. But with in this case, five truly unique different lines of business that are all working together under one property. Uh, Oftentimes you're running at least five different solutions across these. Sometimes they have some similar branding name, but they've maybe been bought by different solutions over the years, or you're running different versions. And because of that, you're maintaining integrations or manual processes that really take up a lot of time and degrade the value that they're providing to your organizations across the board. And really, when we think about what that means to not only maintain all those different systems, the way they interact with each other, the data of that, what does that mean for finance in the end, trying to get a good view of not only closing the month, but even throughout the month? What does that mean for our costing and expenses and our revenue from each of these different aspects? Because really, this fragmentation is where the cost lives. And the more fragmented those are, the more those costs go up. And when I say costs, I'm not really just talking about the dollars you're spending. There's also the costs in time and value for your decision making and those things. Truly, when you think about how often that data is duplicated, whether that's a number of places your guests may have records in across all these different environments, as part of your loyalty tracking and using points and all those sorts of things. Anytime you may set up a vendor, that may need to go in four or five different systems, depending upon what you're buying, where that's coming in from, who's delivering it, how you're maintaining that. And your inventory items, they're going to exist in your restaurant systems, going to exist in your inventory and warehousing systems. They're going to exist in procurement and maybe even in finance as well. And so just that replicating of that data everywhere can really get out of sync, can cause integration issues, and you spend a lot of time just worrying about that data, right? And then you think about for your finance team or your procurement team, that reporting oftentimes is overnight at best, sometimes not even till month end. When you think about what is our true cost of inventory, where are we at in how much do we truly have on hand when we look at our different our different bars and restaurants, as well as what we have in cold storage and maybe the main warehouse and on order, all those things. To be able to truly get good inventory numbers, again, you're often waiting for some consolidated reporting or manual processes to bring some of that together. And then to support that, you're working with a number of different vendors, typically, even if some of those are under one vendor, oftentimes multiple different teams that are supporting those. And so that really just increases the amount of time that you and your team on the IT side that are really spending on just maintaining that. Whether that's keeping the integrations working or making sure that when a new item is entered, that it's mapped to the proper chart of accounts in multiple systems, so the integrations work overnight, or however all that works. There's just so much that goes into maintaining those to make sure that the integrations are working, and or manual processes are being spent on that, and you have that data in so many different locations. And for those organizations that are really looking to lean into AI capabilities, some are waiting, just seeing how things are going on that first. But for those that really want to lean into that at this point, when you have that key data, in a number of different systems, to really be able to make sense of that and have AI be able to really help you. You're first starting with the big data project to bring all that together, provide, and then setting up securities separate on that, and then hoping that AI can really help start providing trend analysis or reconciliation assistance or all that. And so your ability to really take advantage of those AI capabilities is inhibited when you're juggling all those different systems and platforms. That's really where the idea of looking at alternatives, of truly being on one platform with one data model that can really take away with all those costs, both with direct expenses, but also with time and just decision-making capabilities. And so with that, we'll turn it over to Tom.
Yeah, and those are really great points. And one of the things that I'd like to, if you could expand that slide, but when we look at the foundation, the Dynamics platform as a whole, holistically, this is a cloud first solution from Microsoft. And when they released this product, if you're not familiar with it, it was a cloud first solution. And their approach to this was an evergreen approach, meaning that as a client, as a customer, you always have the latest version, you always have the latest updates. And this is really important because not only do we not have to worry about re-engineering and backwards testing integrations to make sure the new version isn't going to cause problems, but we get to leverage all of the new capabilities. So when AI is introduced, not only is it within your own solution, consuming your own data, but it'll continue to do that on ongoing basis. So when we look at the modules and we look at what makes up this platform, it is today's focus to talk about finance, supply chain, and commerce. Commerce is really all encompassing. This is what we consider to be the transactable side of the business, where all the revenue is generated, right? How we interact with clients. So this could be e-commerce, could be retail, could be food and beverage, etc. And all of that gets supported as part of that single data or that common data model through all of the Microsoft Cloud, which is all of the connectors that allow us to generate data, consume data, provide easy paths to integration. Are common everyday applications, things that we use and a lot of people use on a daily basis, like Office and Teams. And all of this covered and governed by Microsoft security, so single sign-on. I know Matt will touch on some of that as well, but that Entra ID, which really gives your users access to the applications that you have rolled out without having to remember 20 different usernames and passwords. And it allows us from an organizational standpoint to create security policies that cover end-to-end all applications and all data, who has access to what and when. What really makes this a truly promising application for a lot of users, especially with robust IT groups, is that it is a what they call low code agility, meaning that it's easy to extend. Meaning that if you have a need for an additional piece of functionality that maybe wasn't designed out of the box, Microsoft provides extensibility points so that you as a user or us as a partner can extend that to fill those specific vertical needs. And of course, as I mentioned, it's cloud, so it does reduce the amount of IT infrastructure that you have to maintain on any given property. So drilling in more from the business application side, when we look at commerce, and when we talk that commerce, we start with retail, and retail is really how we define all of the engagement rules for our customers. So what POS interfaces do we have? Do we use mobile devices, Windows devices, iOS, even kiosks and self-checkout nowadays? So we support all of that in a hardware agnostic fashion because you probably know that you've invested a lot in hardware over the years, and what we want to make sure is that we can leverage those investments by reusing or utilizing hardware investments you've already made. So hardware agnostic, operating system agnostic, with the full security of offline and failover resiliency. So really exciting in that sense. When we look at how we unify the data, not just for retail, but across our entire landscape of retail and restaurant type engagements, we want a centralized way that we can manage all data. And then we can publish that data, or we can push that data out to the locations that need to sell it. So now the users don't have to trip over, data from the retail stores while they're working on restaurant products. And so we can really cleanly push that data to the right places. But again, as Matt pointed out, single source of data all flows back up. So from an inventory, customer engagement standpoint, this is how we take all of this data and leverage that consistent look at and feel so that we can see how customers are engaging across the enterprise. With the integration and that extensibility that I mentioned, bringing in third party, so having a loyalty program or a rewards program that you're using now in a casino, is going to fully integrate directly into the point of sale transaction. So we can do real-time calls to that. We can update it real time, probably stuff you're relatively familiar with. And then, of course, when we engage with the guest, we want to make sure that the users, the workers who are interfacing with these customers, have the full visibility of the customer's transaction history throughout their stay. And this is really important. People want to be known, they want to be recognized, and they, of course, want good service. If they do have an issue, anybody at any point of sale should be able to help them. And I'll show some examples of that. We also manage how we price, right? Pricing, promotions, assortments. What do I sell? How much do I sell? And where do I sell it? And so what you sell for one price online may be different through an app and may be different at a retail or a food and beverage location. So we have full control over that with our pricing schemes. And then of course the Copilot, Microsoft released what they called their server, their Copilot server, their MCP server for commerce, which gives us the ability to implement a chat feature in POS. And this goes a long way in terms of training and usability. And even IT support is utilizing this in a lot of ways to be able to interact with the point of sale device without having to, number one, know how to do it, meaning I don't want to read a log. I just want the Copilot to tell me what happened, why it didn't work. It's out of paper, the cash drawer didn't open. But I also want to use it for my associates to help them in familiarizing themselves with not only my standard operating procedures, but maybe refresher on how to do it if they forgot. Moving in to the food and beverage side, we're leveraging all of that data that I just mentioned, but now we're bringing in the food and beverage elements to this. And in a robust environment with food and beverage, we have multiple fast food cafe type service, full-blown restaurant seating, dining room, bars, and in-room service. We also have the ability to consume digital orders, and digital orders could be from third-party apps, could be from your own app and or different interfaces that the customer may have. So we bring all of those transactions in from a food and beverage standpoint, handling the different requirements of each of those functionalities. So some examples of that is how we manage the revenue centers. And in a revenue center for us and historically has always been, a bar is a revenue center, a restaurant is a revenue center, a cafe is a revenue center, et cetera. And so I want to be able to segregate that. I want to create rules that apply to those different revenue centers so that the transactions they are flowing the proper way. And then of course how I'm handling my dining rooms and even reservations and wait lists for different dining environments. And then of course how do we do the production side of that? How do we orchestrate the kitchen and where does that food have to go once I've ordered it? So whether it's a centralized kitchen, whether it's a diverse kitchen where maybe some products come from a central kitchen, others are more local. We can coordinate all of that. So we have full kitchen management solution and with reporting. So that gives us view into where our speed of service issues may be. We can see how long food took when it went to the kitchen. We could tell each area of a kitchen, who's being productive. And then, of course, the recipe, the menus, modifiers, combos, and how all the packages that we put together for all the different food in the different outlets. We have full, robust menu and recipe engineering capabilities within the solution that drives that inventory usage and the consumption. So, from a costing standpoint, we're getting near real costs, not theoretical. And of course, we're seeing a very accurate signal in the supply chain because we know when we sold a cheeseburger with extra mushrooms because that's being tracked at that level. And then, of course, this is all part of that standard retail commerce application. So the same things that I mentioned before in terms of hardware agnostic, flowing into supply chain and inventory, and then, of course, finance at the end of the day. And that leads us back into the inventory side, and I'll turn it back to Matt for that.
All right, thank you, Tom. Before we go, I do see that Melissa has her hand raised in and so Melissa, assuming that was on purpose, do you have a question? I see it. Oh, sorry, that was Melissa Biligatti. I now just realized there are two Melissas in attendance. Sorry about that. Okay, well, feel free to put if you're trying to chat and it's not working, feel free to put your question in the chat. We can come back to that later, Melissa. Want to make sure we get a chance to answer any questions folks have. Um, with that, as Tom was saying, another part of Dynamics 365 is the supply chain management, which is truly that procurement and inventory management side of things. And so often, this is where we really start seeing the rubber meet the road in the difference between unified systems and segregated systems, where it's very common within our customers or other people we've worked with, where we see that maybe they're using multiple procurement systems, some that are designated specifically for the food and beverage side, others that are ordering maybe the other hospitality related need things for the hotels or resorts, or just the general supplies that are being used. And then with that, you're oftentimes not seeing the real-time inventory aspects of what's actually happening at the restaurants and the venues. So Dynamics 365 brings that all together, and the procurement and inventory side of things is called the supply chain management. And that's where you're starting being able to source everything that you need to make sure that your guests have what they're looking to buy, right? So as well as the other supplies, the things that you need just to operate as an organization. So being able to have a centralized vendor management. So whether you're establishing an initial contract, and procurement vehicle or vendor within that vendor now becomes available as depending upon the settings that you give and the access that folks have throughout the system. You're starting at the procurement side. You're not having to then integrate that over to accounts payable or through to the food and beverage system or those things, all managed together under supply chain management, so that you can effectively manage who you're buying from and what you're going to be buying from them. And then taking a step further, how you interact with those vendors. Some updates recently, especially with some of the agents that are available within Dynamics 365. Really automate some of the emails and notifications from emails to let you know if you get an email from a vendor that says, "Hey, are the order that you placed last week, we ended up on some back order. We're going to be 3 days late in delivery." Can now automatically update things like expected delivery dates. So those at the dock, when they're looking at they're preparing for their deliveries and inbound for the day, they know exactly what they're going to be getting because those are being updated automatically just based upon the agents reviewing email. Uh, and then really being able to bring that together for the sake of that warehouse management. So as you're ordering what you need, that's getting delivered, then being able to manage how all the ways that you have your inventory. So whether you have a real central warehouse, maybe cold storage, and that's where most everything lives, and then you're just delivering maybe a day or two's worth of things out to your different venues. Each of those venues, each of those warehouses, bins, locations, all the full capabilities of a robust inventory and warehouse management system, including the ability to use handhelds for scanning and delivery notifications and all that stuff as you would want for receiving, pick, pack, ship. Everything throughout that inventory life cycle can be supported via mobile devices as well. So then if you get requests from the various venues for additional goods or things that they need for the day, maybe they're selling a lot of hamburgers because of a special and they need to get some things out there. Again, being able to route those requests and inventory transactions and deliver them right from there. While being able to then have visibility to your inventory on hand across all those locations, including the individual restaurants, because as Tom was saying, as those are, as individual orders are coming in and you're making those hamburgers, throughout based upon those menu setup, it's automatically consuming that inventory as it's going through. And being that it's a unified system, you can across the board see how much you have on hand. And that spills into the demand and supply planning, right? As you have big events coming up, you can have your demand forecasting and different seasonalities, reorder points, your par levels, all the types of things you might want on that. And then based upon your configuration and desires, you can have the system automatically suggest what to buy, when to buy it, who to buy it from, if you have different pricing and things negotiated with your vendors to then help make sure that you've got what you need when you need it without being overstocked. And then finally, as we've been talking about the different AI capabilities, Tom mentioned the MCP, the new AI server that's available for Dynamics. Within that, that gives you the ability to configure different sorts of agents that can really help with things. And sometimes that may be just in natural language, being able to ask, "Hey, how are we looking on our ribeyes, for the coming week?" Because you're going to be football is starting. You're expecting more steaks to be bought, things like that, making you quickly give you answers across all your properties of how much you have on hand for those. You can initiate orders and things just via kind of like a chat bot, just talking really with your financial system and supply chain management system. And that can be done right through Microsoft Teams or some of the other tools that you're using on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, a key piece of bringing everything together is the finance side. Oftentimes it can feel like in the casino space that finance is the last to know. Certain times, they're typically you're waiting for other things to happen. Sometimes those are other teams, depending on how they're organized. So it could be things like your revenue audits that and maybe your month-end inventory counts and all that, that really kind of lags in the ability to be able to report on where are we, not just yesterday, but where are we today? How did we do last week? How and spend less time worrying if those daily integrations came through and posted, or have the inventory counts been done at the for this month at all the different restaurants. All those things can really be done, not done away with necessarily, but you're not waiting on those to be able to close out your periods or even run reports on your day. Because with the full-fledged financial system, that is part of the same system. As soon as you make a sale, those financial transactions are updated, so you can see really where you're at on a day in and day out basis. And that can work across different types of entities. So you can have the same chart of accounts within Dynamics 365, or different chart of accounts. If you have multiple properties, maybe a golf course, a hotel that are different entities, even the tribal government at times, all within that same system, just with separate security, configured for who can access what, but then being able to consolidate those automatically to get rolled up financial statements, especially for senior leadership. And that really brings faster financial close with all those transactions originating right within that same system. Not only is there less to have to tie out and reconcile because you're not dealing with multiple systems, but there are aspects within like Microsoft Copilot that can automatically handle some of those daily reconciliations of things that match, and you're just dealing with and being alerted for the exceptions that you need to help tie out. So really robust automation capabilities across all that to make financial closing that much easier. And then being able to spend more time with things like budgeting, planning, and forecasting, so that you spend more time on those really value-added, future-looking stuff to make sure that your properties are ready to operate successfully. You have what you need, and that your leadership has the ability to make those decisions because they see where things are and where things are going. And using those same natural language type options for asking questions of, and even creating transactions, making requests through that Copilot functionality within Dynamics 365 Finance. So with that, we've talked about those four key real components. You've got your point of sale and retail, like your gift shops, those things. You've got your food and beverage, and then the supply chain management and finance. It's all part of that same system supporting all of that. That's really driven by what we call the common data model. And that's that aspect that when you create a vendor, it's one table of vendors that's available throughout those applications, right? Throughout those modules. When you create a new inventory item that you're either going to buy, sell, make, whatever that might look like, it's only one table that's storing those, so that you've got those capabilities, and you can control, as Tom was saying, where those are used. You probably don't want a hamburger coming up in a list in your gift shop, or a new purse that's that's in the gift shop coming up within at the golf course or something like that. Really being able to control that, but still really just having one record for all those that are all tied together. Then as you're integrating with your customers and guests, your loyalty systems, bringing those in so you know who's buying what, how are they using their points, and Tom will show some of that in just a little bit here, so you can see exactly what that can look like, on the retail side of things. You're being able to unify, so you're not integrating that with multiple different systems, multiple point of sales, all that. It's coming into one spot to make it really easy for your hosts and other folks to see, and your support individuals to be able to really work well with your guests and provide high levels of service. And again, at the single chart of accounts, so when you create some new accounts, you're setting things up on the financial side, you're not having to go and modify, integration points with three other systems to make sure that those come through, or update Excel spreadsheets that are calculating journal entries for you from revenue audits. Like, those are coming in, it's all part of the same system, and really speeding that up and giving you better insight in one place, uh, as part of the use of that system. And that really does bring that end to the overnight batch reporting, right? So often we're used to, looking a day behind as how did we do yesterday? And there's a lot of value in that. But part of that comes with when you're juggling data from multiple systems, you're really limited in your ability to report on that. If you have a data warehouse that you've been working with and things already, and you have, different sync time set up to bring that through, that's great, and that gives you a lot of good visibility. But if that was all within the same system to begin with, not only is that less to maintain and less expense to have to deal with there, but it also increases the frequency with when you can run those reports, how often they're refreshed, and what you can see within that, and really being able to analyze data across your applications, and not just limited to the models that were created for you in your data warehouse a year ago. And then all of that then being available again with the power of Copilot, being able to ask questions of your data in plain English, and not needing to remember what table it's in or what query do I need to use, what's my wildcard status, or things that maybe we're used to in some querying in the past, really bringing that together with that power of the Copilot. And as Tom mentioned earlier, that data governance, you're really being able to get to a true idea for like a zero trust architecture within the Microsoft cloud stack, being able to set who has access to what data. It's all using that same that same identity, your governance of your data. If you're using Microsoft Purview or other things like that, it is easier because it's all part of the Microsoft cloud to begin with, and that makes sure that whether they're using Power BI or Excel or Teams or natively within the interface itself, the application interfaces, that they're only seeing and interacting with the data your users are that they have access to. And then finally, just kind of a recap on the idea that Microsoft continues to roll out, agents throughout. You have the option of whether or not you want to use these AI agents. But the fact is that going forward, regardless of the system that you are, this is, a real key step forward in automation and efficiency gains. And so Microsoft continues with release after release to make available new agents within their applications. And as Tom mentioned earlier, the evergreen aspect, where as that cloud first solution, being able to get those updates at least a couple times a year with key new functionality, being able to use the different co-pilots and agents to not only do like some of what's highlighted here on the screen, in the applications themselves, but also easily develop your own agents using the Model Context Protocol, the MCP servers that are available. Some ideas that we've even had is being able to, you think about the turnover, the folks that are working at your venues. If someone needs to be able to quickly request some more inventory from the warehouse, right? Learning a new system with a lot of turnover that we see in some of those positions, to know how to make those requests or who to route that through or what that looks like. If instead they just had there was just a chat bot that they could tell what they need, and then the system knows, okay, who do I need to route that through, and the system runs with it from there. It just makes that training and that learning and the usability of it so much easier, especially for those key positions with lots of turnover, but that have a lot of great influence with the service that your guests are receiving.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing I did want to add to that, and we talk about that evergreen approach, is that they don't just magically show up and turn on. So all the IT people in the room, not to get too stressed out about the fact that new things will pop up and turn on in your systems without you knowing about it. So it is a controlled release. And of course, it does allow customers to adopt things, and you can opt out on things too, some new functionality, new features. But overall, from what we've discussed, I like to use this infinity loop example because unlike the old days where you basically have a push-pull, I'm exporting data, I'm importing data, and it's always this, constant navigation of traffic of data. This infinity loop is just constantly rolling that data and the transaction information as we go or as customers engage, continuously, obviously. So whether it's restaurant experiences into retail, and then of course how we drive that data that Matt talked about in terms of the supply chain and the inventory and fulfillment and replenishment, how we track it, the performance of that, right? So from a financial and a costing standpoint, are we on budget? Are we, on our plan for the year as it relates to product and cost and profit? And then, of course, how we look at that from the analytics. But the other side of that is that customer journey, customer's journey throughout the property and understanding. And I gave an example of being able to service a customer at any point of interaction, but that also includes call center. So we have within the commerce solution, we have full commerce call center capabilities. And so this means the customer, when they arrive home, they could realize that they were charged incorrectly or what have you. They can call the call center. The call center can actually see all the transactions. They can even make a refund or adjustments to a transaction after the fact. And then, of course, the loyalty, being able to drive that data and the consumption data and points earned back into your own loyalty program is really important. So, with that being said, I did want to jump into some live demonstration, which is really the better part of most webinars. But um, I think you have to stop sharing that, and then I'll go ahead and share mine quick.
Yep,
So,
you
bear
bet.
with me for 1 second. And
As it's coming up, I do want to drill down a little bit onto that call center capabilities. We'll see Tom pull up some of the functionality here, so you can see what your centralized host or someone may look like. It's just that idea that I know I've had to do it before. You work staying at our customers or things, and you realize that I didn't get a receipt and needing to call and make that request, and we have to wait till the right person is in at the right venue. They may get back to you 2 or 3 days later, and with the receipt because it's just the limitations of that. But with you being able to enable centralized customer service where someone could call in and see everything across those, I think we could quickly see how that can lead to increased levels of guest service and just happier customers that want to keep coming back to your properties.
yeah, great point. And yeah, really excellent point. So driving that from a transaction standpoint, if I'm at the point of sale. So I'm just going to log in. We're not going to do a full point of sale demonstration today. Of course, we're happy to set up a time to go through and look at the actual flow. But what I thought was important was to be able to show at least the clienteling side, a little bit about Copilot and how it interacts with the transactions, and then look at some of the analytics. I'm logging into a point of sale. It's actually in my Atlanta store, and I am a worker, standard worker. Actually, I'm a manager, so I'll have more capabilities, but I'm using just a manual keyed in. Everybody in the system has a security and a security role. I have my Entra ID that also governs how I interact with the system in general, but I also have this worker set up. So I don't have to be part of that same, and we can drill into those details with you later. So from a worker standpoint, I'm just using a device and I can use a magnetic card. I could use RFID. I can key in my user ID and password. So lots of different ways to interact with the system. When I log in, because I am the manager and I didn't close my shift from yesterday, it's going to bring me to basically a manager screen. So this is where I can access my functions. It's all fully customizable. You can change the colors, pictures, and all of that. So this is a really just a demo system. When I look at the how I look for my customers, and I need to figure out how to move this screen here. Where I look for my customers, I need to be able to interact with, there we go. I can do it by name, I can do it by email, I can do it by a loyalty card number. So anything that I happen to have about the customer to be able to pull them up. So customer ID 2001, I'm just going to look at Karen Berg and I'm going to take a look at her profile. And there's a couple of things that you're going to notice right away. And one is that I have, some relative information about the customer, how long they've been with us, their addresses. So we can buy in store and ship to home. I think I mentioned that earlier. But what's really cool is the Copilot stuff. And this is where Copilot is, to Matt's point, only using your own transactional data to generate this. It's not going to Microsoft. It's not being published as public information. So it's really drilling into the actual behaviors of your customers in your property. And it's full of great information that actually changes quite frequently. So right now I'm looking at a summary, basically tells me what they usually spend, maybe what they bought last, even gives me some suggestions. So if I'm in a jewelry store and I want to make a recommendation, so they bought a brown aviator pair of sunglasses, maybe I have something I could recommend for that would go along with that. In terms of the timeline, because Microsoft also has what they call customer insights or a customer data platform, I can also interface with that. So if you have that or your own CRM system, we can actually ingest contact data. This means that I've sent maybe marketing to this customer, and I want to be able to see not only, what their behaviors are, but how have I interacted with this customer in the past. Maybe the customer said to me, "Hey, I am interested in doing something that you're offering in the future." I can actually create a note here and I can make a note, an activity, and that can flow into marketing automatically. So if I want to sign up for a fall, festival event, I can do that through any point of sale. I can record it with the user, save it, and have that flow into marketing so that I can be on that list. You also see that I have my loyalty program information. I can be linked to multiple loyalty programs. So you could just have a simple like buy 10, get one free coffee club, right? Or you can have your rewards program. So they can all coexist together. And then, of course, I can see all of my recent purchases. It happens to be all food just in this view. But I can drill as a user, I can drill into this and I can look at a full list of everything this customer's ever bought, including more of a visual presentation. So I can see each product, see, what they when they bought it. So on the 10th, and then I can look at each product. So if a customer had a question about something that they purchased in the past, maybe they want to buy another one, maybe they want to buy something that will complement it, I can pull up that original product. I can look at the product details with Copilot information, which is really relevant. And I can also look at different pictures, images, all of the data that I capture because we are this commerce capability includes e-commerce. I have a full content management system within Dynamics that I can leverage for all of my pictures, my descriptions, and things like that. So no matter where I'm looking at this product, I can always see all of that really rich detail. And then, of course, we have the ability to even add this item to a transaction at this point, so that if the customer wants to buy another one and we have it in stock, we can go ahead and do that. I can also look at their how they engage with me. So maybe they went on my website and they said, you know what, when I come to the property, I want to go to this particular store and I really like this dress, but I want to see it first. They can create their own wish list through that interface, that e-com. And when they come to the store now, I can actually pull it up and say, oh, yes, you have two dresses here in your list. Which one do you want to look at? And I can pull up the relevant information on it. It's a really nice way to interact with that data. And then, of course, that full transaction history that we talked about. So I can pull up a transaction from history based on the customer's request. I can do a return. I can pre-print this receipt. I can, look at all the details of things that were also on the receipt. So really nice way to interact. And again, return, print, receipt, email the receipt, etc. And then any affiliations or attributes that I want to capture about my customers. So a lot of really nice, rich detail that I can say, maybe it's a program where I automatically get a discount, like a student discount or a senior discount, but also more attribute based. So, what details do I need to track about this customer so that when they interact with my workers, they'll have that level of detail that makes the customer feel like they're a known entity. So now I'm going to jump off into the analytics side of things. So bringing this all back into Power BI is great. And Power BI, if you haven't used it, is a super intuitive, really nice way to analyze your data. What we've done is we've taken that to the next level and we said, most retailers and restaurant operators ask for specific reports. We have those in the point of sale. I can run, what did I sell today? Well, I can look at my cash drawer, my daily sales receipts and things like that. But to really get into the super analytic side of things, now we've created these dashboards. And the dashboards could be, I'm a user that only has access to this one sales module. And that may be what I live and breathe by every day. I can pull it up on my phone. I can see how the restaurant's doing. I can make decisions that I need to, cut staff, labor, add more people on the fly. So this is near real time. So in our standard module view, we have basically these carved out into these categorically. I'll show you a couple of examples of these. And then, of course, we have some more advanced analytics. So just really simple looking at the sales by volume or sales by module. So this is looking at all of my locations within my property. And it's slicing the data based on this is I want to see it by day part. I want to see, maybe what my meal periods are. So my revenue generated by meal period, my total volumes by hour. So during those meal periods, when was I the busiest? And then what were my sales volumes during any of those given periods? All of this detail is drillable, so I can drill down into specific information. I can look at specific terminals, and I can really slice and dice this the way that I would want to see it. I can also save those views or export that out, email it to myself, email it to staff, and be able to collaborate on that information. We also want to look at, holistically, what does my discount, my voids, my, not the normal transactions, but the exceptions. What's happening in my property from a financial standpoint that could actually be impacting my overall revenue in a negative way? And how do I pinpoint, where it's happening so I can go figure out why it's happening? And so we look at this from, a lot of different levels. Of course, we have all of our return information by user, by store, by register, by day part. We can look at maybe even item mix, what products were being bought and how are they contributing to overall returns. We don't like returns, right? Nobody really should be doing returns. So it's an indicator of some other problem. And so being able to analyze that and see that and more near real time, it's not quite the loss prevention type system, but it does give you the actionable data that you need to be able to drill in and find out what product mix is causing me to have, so many returns in this one location. So really good detail there. And then, of course, from the financial reconciliation standpoint, we've got our full view of all payments, across time for each location and, as a percentage. So credit card volumes, maybe in club purchases, loyalty programs, and things like that. How is that going from a timeline standpoint? And where do I need to maybe adjust a standard business process? Maybe my AMX is way over the threshold that I thought I would be, and I need to talk to my credit card rep to make sure I'm getting the best rates that I need. Customer modules, all of that data is in there. And then, of course, when we look into the inventory side of things, we have our usage and wastage. So if I scroll down here into our inventory, with food and beverage more so than with fixed or static retail. You buy a widget, you put it on the shelf, it can sit there until infinity before you sell it or decide you're going to discount it to get rid of it. Food, not so much. Food, it's living and we buy a tomato and we got to sell it within a certain amount of time. So how much of the products that I'm buying are actually getting wasted as part of the day in, day out process? And is it expiry? Is it waste? Like I've dropped it on the floor? Is it product coming back from the dining room because the guest was unhappy? And by the way, you'll notice there's a lot of generic names here, so I apologize for that, but these would be very specific. So your items, your store names, your warehouses, you would see that level of detail. So a lot of really key information there. And then of course, how we cost and attribute the profit within our recipes. With our solution, we have not only, we use bill of materials, and if you're familiar with that expression, it basically is everything that goes into making that finished product. When we create a recipe, we tell the recipe what it has, how many ounces of this and how many ounces of that. And when we sell it, though, customers never want it the way they do sometimes, but they want to adjust it. They want to hold the tomatoes. They want to add avocado, these type of adjustments. So we're tracking that at the point of sale level. And if they've added a product to the recipe, an ingredient like avocado that wasn't part of the original recipe, we actually update the bill of material real time to account for the consumption of that avocado. So this does really two important things. One is it drives more accurate costing, not theoretical. You know exactly what that hamburger cost you because you put avocado on it. But it also drives a really accurate signal into your supply chain. So you don't think you have 30 avocados back there going bad. You've actually sold them all day long and now you need to replenish them. So really, really good information there. So when
Well,
I
that's
look, sorry, go ahead.
just keep an eye on the time here, Tom. We've just got a few minutes left here. Want to make sure we've got some good time for questions and stuff here.
Yep, perfect.
Um,
I was just going to show an example of the Copilot, and I'll turn it right back over to you if that works. So from that Copilot, the last thing I really wanted to show was the Copilot item, and this is really looking at things like how Copilot is being introduced into the standard system by giving you the tools that you need to be able to analyze the data that you're looking at. So here's the Copilot. It's part of Power BI. I can look at some prompts. I can type in my own prompts. But let's just say I need to put a summary of all of my discounts into a clean report that I need to be able to share out to other staff and also be able to collaborate on maybe with my loss and fraud prevention team to be able to figure out if we have issues. And so a couple of seconds, this will pop up. And again, this is a demo environment, so it's doing what it's doing. But it is actually some real data. So you'll see here that it's created this great list and it's given me the summary of what's a viewing on the report. It gives me my performance. It gives me the store and time mix. It gives me the discount and margin protection. Am I doing what I need to? Returns, voids, and risks. So a lot of really good information here that I can now take away and go make some decisions, actionable data to make better process change. And with that, thanks for the extra time. I'll turn it back to Matt.
all right, thank you, Tom. And the key with this is to show you some of the value of having that unified data model, right? When you've got things together, when you can start answering questions within certain reports that tie back to your deposits on the financial side with the tender types and everything like that, right in that same system, the inventory levels and the true inventory costing and everything that comes together with that. And so, as we wrap up here, again, we'll open up for questions in just a couple of minutes. Um, as the slide deck comes back up. But with everything built on the Dynamics 365 um, stack here, it really gives us that idea to be able to reduce your vendor relationships and the number of systems that you are working with. The number of integrations drop off considerably because there really isn't any needed because it's all part of that same application. You can really start shifting that investment then and faster decision making into the things that are one, more fun to do for your IT team, but also just provide that value more quickly. And I know that many of you are familiar with who Arctic IT is, but just I love highlighting the fact that we are an Alaska Native corporation, and that similar to we have a shared mission to many of you all, which is to provide economic opportunities for your tribal members. And you're working with Arctic IT, and our partners are doing the same thing. I'm up in Alaska this week, meeting with our Doyon team here as part of our Alaska Native corporation. So as you partner with us, you really are. You in a shared mission between us and you all as you're working for your Native members. Now, with that, I know many of you are familiar with us at Arctic IT and that we bring Microsoft business applications to all of our customers through TribalNet and things there, and we're excited to have Amicis as part of us because where we have that expertise in the Microsoft stack and all the supply chain finance and even the commerce and point of sale side, Amicis really brings that food and beverage uh, expertise to the team when it comes to the restaurant management stuff in particular. So working together with their dynamics overlays within bringing the food and beverage, really then highlight that opportunity to start looking at unifying those systems as you're making investments within that, the ability to start adding those in to a unified Microsoft environment, working together. So with that, I know we've talked for a while about questions and stuff here. We do have about 5 minutes left here. Would like to open the floor for questions. So you type
Yes.
them. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Michelle.
got a couple. Okay, first one. Are integrations already in place with CMS, IGT, Konami, Light and Wonder, etc.?
Do we have existing integrations like to plug and play for those?
I think that's what they're asking. Yeah.
Okay, it's a great question. And there is configuration necessary depending upon what you're using for those. And so we do use the Microsoft integration capabilities. And so depending upon how you have those rolled out, most folks have those on-prem, but depending upon what that model looks like, we can configure that. We're not having to develop something completely new um, within the Microsoft Azure suite of functionality.
Okay,
And
awesome.
and oh, sorry, I was just going to add to that. We do have Microsoft does have a marketplace as well. So like with your phone, you can peruse apps. So the Microsoft App Source is what it's called. And you'd be surprised. There's lots of different customers, lots of different partners have done connectors already
Mhm.
for a lot
Great
of these.
question.
Okay, awesome. Next question. If we are already using some form of dynamics, do I need to implement this all at once or can I implement in phases?
Yeah, great question. And absolutely, we would often recommend doing it in phases. The idea of replacing your financial system, inventory warehouse and point of sale all at once, while doable and possible, that's just a lot of change management and people management within that. So if you're already using like Dynamics 365 for finance and supply chain, for instance, or if you're in the middle of implementing something like that, then at some point when you're ready to start looking at point of sale replacement, restaurant management replacement, those things you can absolutely, without having to re-implement or anything like that, you can add those on when you're ready, because it's really just turning on the applications. Once the initial environment is installed, most of those are in there and ready to just turn on based upon licensing and then configuration.
Mhm. Awesome. And last question I have for you guys is from both of your perspectives, if there's a leader from a tribe or from a casino on the call today, if there is, one nugget of information that you'd want them to take away as an action item from this call, what would that be?
Tom, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'd love to. Sure. I think from my perspective and having been involved in the industry as long as I have, I think it's really critical to understand and now see all of the investments that have been made into a single platform. And I reference the old days because I've been doing this for a long time, but having a single provider, reducing the amount of IT overhead and infrastructure, it really puts a lot of the onus on the partners that are delivering the solution. And having an end-to-end capable solution is probably one of the most important parts of being profitable in today's market.
Mhm.
And beyond that, because I fully agree with that, also the idea of thinking through the lens of also your guests and the level of service that they can get, and how much being able to unify that across for your hosts and support folks or those that are interacting with your guests on a day-to-day basis. So much of this outside of the point of sale is some of the back end aspects we don't always think about. Truly, there are huge benefits to guest services when you have a unified environment like this. So
Mhm.
just thinking about it from that perspective as well.
Yeah, great point.
Awesome. Great. I don't see any more questions coming in. So you guys, thank you so much for being on this today. For those of you on the call, if you are at TribalNet, which you should be, make sure you stop by the Arctic booth. They always have some really cool swag, and you'll have a chance to meet Matt in person and chit chat about this and some of their other products that they have, serving all tribal nations, governments, enterprises throughout the country. So um, with that, you guys have a great afternoon. Matt and Tom, thank you again for being here
Thanks,
and for the
everyone.
presentation, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having
Take care,
us.
all. Thanks
Appreciate
again.
it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.